standards, we go back and take a look at what's included in the policy manual that guides our actions. And there's a certain section that when we bring new people to our district, we have it as part of our induction program that we review with every single new educator so that they're aware of all of the policies that have a significant and direct impact on teaching and learning. And that has to do with the students, it has to do with our personnel, it has to do with our program of studies, because we have general policies that provide guidance to those of us that then operationalize those policies. So when we take a look at what are those three main responsibilities of the school committee, it's to hire and fire the superintendent, it's to have oversight of the budget, and to set policy. Those are the three major categories. And within those categories, we address what's been included in this self-evaluation. So it may be helpful then to clarify, if we're going to keep elements under educational program, what do we mean by that statement that's included in there? What do you use as a measure to indicate whether we're developing, or we've developed, or we're embedded and sustainable?
Right. And actually Mel provided an interesting example when he said, let's see how many of those classes look at 27. See, there's, right there is an example of how, at a very high level, we're participating in that.
And in a sense, we've done that with test scores before. We were the SAT scores, and we really put some pressure on the administration to try to do something about that.
And then John ended up added classes, classes at the high school.
And we had that was at our urging as well. But I find it interesting when you look at the educational program scores on the average, they're extremely low, except for the one that the school committee maintains, an appropriate self-assessment tool. That's high, and the rest of them are so low. So that is a problem area here.
I do think that the word collaboration is what threw me off on one of those. And then the other one is negotiate and implement an effective educator evaluation system. That's a state requirement.
Yeah, we're going to cut this one next year.
I'm not, and this isn't criticism. This had far fewer not applicable categories than last year's. Last year there was a ton of them. This year was only a few.
Right.
So,
and I think that particular one, where next year you're going to see a whole lot more involvement with that. That's one of the reasons why it's there, is it preparing for next year. We didn't want to drop it out and then have to bring it back in.
The one area, a couple of areas that I see us still lacking, and this depends again on collaborating with the superintendent, is develops and uses data to assess effectiveness of educational programs. I don't think we have the data yet to do that. So I think based on the data that we do have, mainly MCAS and SAT tests, we're looking at those and making suggestions. And I think you're going to talk about data a little bit more tonight. Jerry mentioned the professional development for school committee. We have talked about having a little more formal orientation program for new members, but I think, as Jerry mentioned, we don't have any new members. So.
The evaluation subcommittee did discuss and has identified the elements of an orientation, but because they knew that it was not a contested race, that they decided to put it off for the evaluation subcommittee to formalize for next year.
Okay.
Can I just say, as I've listened to the committee talk about the educational program, I think what's bothersome is the language around curriculum and instruction, because that's not what we do. We do participate in the strategy, the high-level strategy of determining what infrastructure we put together in order to ensure that we have a solid curriculum that is compliant with law, and that we have the adequate instruction to ensure lower class sizes and so on and so forth. So I think what I would recommend the next evaluation subcommittee do is to restructure this section to be around the strategy and the high-level sort of work that we do. And there are a couple of things that could come out of here. The educator evaluation has, that's implementation of the new system is actually something we should evaluate, because we're going to roll that out next year, and we're going to have to figure out whether we did it right, how, are we doing it correctly, because that's a big undertaking, and Cliff and I have both spent time familiarizing ourselves with that system. So we can edit that, but I would agree with Mel's point around data. I think we could actually create a plan to use data more effectively in our own assessment of how our strategy works or does not work. I think we rely a lot on the administration to do that, but as a committee, we have the prerogative to exercise that we could actually look at that data and become more involved. I would say this is more like improvement, like an quality improvement sort of orientation to the work that we do, and that could be its own subcommittee. But we've talked about this for at least 2 years, doing the self-assessment, that we're kind of lacking in this area, or feel confused about it. It may be an area where we want to consider an ad hoc committee to look at it.
I want to nominate Karen to go back on the evaluation committee.
No.
No? All right.
I think the one thing I really like about this is I know when I fill it out, I'm 100% honest on my answers, and I think everybody is, and I think this is an excellent tool. And I can't believe that every school committee in the state doesn't do this, because this is excellent, because it helps us individually as members say, geez, either I should be doing more of that, or geez, I don't get that. Why aren't we as a committee doing that? So
It's like gap analysis.
even if it's only 1 or 2 of us out of the 5 who think that, then that means there's an issue that needs to be looked at. Just a couple other specifics. I didn't really understand the integrates policy making into budget process. I didn't really understand what
number
that.
is that?
It's number 28, integrates policy making into budget process. I guess I was confused by that. And then just the one other one I had was, and now I won't be able to find it. Oh, the school improvement plans. I think we received them. I don't think we, as a committee, do anything with them other than receiving them. Now, whether that's because we're not supposed to, or whether that's because everything that's in the school improvement plan is part of the bigger plan and budget and strategic stuff that we're working on, I don't know. But I just don't think we do anything with those plans. Personally, I look at them, and then I don't think anything happens with them after that.
Maybe that comes from a lack of closeness or with the student council process and sort of how these plans are developed. I think sometimes as a committee we defer to the individual buildings, the school buildings, and the people that are on the councils developing these plans, because we're respectful of the fact that they're local and they're a committee of parents, teachers, in some cases students and principals, and we want to, basically say we respect your process, and unless there's a red flag, we're not going to call it. But they produce these wonderful plans that are very well thought out, and there's a lot of participation, and we don't do anything with them. So that could be something we would set a goal
Is anybody
around.
held accountable?
Well, that's the question.
If they're not held
We
accountable,
approve
really
them.
can't do anything with them.
They come, they present, we rubber stamp them, basically. And then what happens after that?
Then they're implemented. Under the Ed Reform Act, school councils were mandated.
Right.
And that's when the responsibility of the school committee shifted, if you may recall. So some of the responsibilities of school committees were then shifted to school councils. So school councils are considered local governance of a school, and they have specific criteria that they need to follow, including what constitutes a school improvement plan. That's all dictated by legislation. So what the school councils do is they take a look at all of the goals that they need to establish, and then they assess each year by putting surveys out. Sometimes it's every other year, to the constituents of that particular school to do a needs assessment on the goal areas, and then take that information and develop new goals. So that's how those school improvement plans are developed. And if you take a look at them, they're written as action plans. So they do have evaluation measures tied in, and they're implemented over the course of the school year. They come to me first for review before they come to you, and then I either meet with the principal if I have a question, or I tell the principal to move it into print to prepare for the school committee meeting. So I also play a role in reviewing those and approving them, and they become part of my conversation with each of the building level administrators around their evaluations.
So
Their goals reflect those as well as.
And like the other things that we've talked about, our involvement is at a high level. If there was something bizarre in one of them that managed to get through that gauntlet, we'd crush it. if there was a line in there that said, we're gonna burn all the books on December 16th.
Yeah.
We'd say, no, you're not, and we'd squelch that plan, but we're doing the appropriate level with them,
But I guess we don't
which isn't much, by the way.
do anything though to implement them. We
No.
vote them, but we don't enforce,
Right.
we don't implement, we
You're
don't.
voting to accept them. That's what you're
Correct.
doing.
And what I forgot, I can't find where that thing is, I just read it. Doesn't, it says we do more than vote to accept them, and now I can't find it.
It's,
The number?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
receives and addresses school improvement plans number 40.
40, okay.
Number 40?
I mean, how, is address them, we just vote on them?
Well, I think there's a presentation that's made. I don't just hand them out to you. There's a
Right.
representation of each of the school, whether it's the principal or members of the school council speaking with the principal. And they highlight for you those key priorities that are included in the school improvement plan. So, and then you have an opportunity to ask questions, so you're addressing.
So that's all it means, we're
presentation.
hearing the presentation, as Cliff said, if we see anything out of whack, we're asking questions about anything that's in the plan.
And by law, that's what we're supposed to do.
Okay.
And
So-
I'd be happy to send some information to you around school councils and the school committee's role.
I think this
I'd like
is
to
worth
see that.
setting actually a budget, not a budget, I'm sorry. Oh, goal, setting a goal around this particular topic, because to me, I see this as a missed opportunity to enhance communication with those councils and to really get their input, understand how they came up with these plans. When we listen to great presentations about what they're doing, but we're rubber stamping them when they come here. In the last 3 years I've sit on this committee, that we've just kind of said, oh, this is great.
Right.
Wonderful, it's so wonderful to hear what's going
Right,
on.
thanks
It's
for all
more
your
of a
work and-
report, whereas that was not what ed reform really anticipated in doing. This was a way of engaging community and making more informed choices at the building level, and then having the school committee, check in with them to make sure that this is aligned with their overall strategy.
So let me ask a question related to that. In the past, and I don't remember how many years ago this was, I actually, as I was on the school committee, I used to attend the little school, school council meetings. Not as a voting member, I just used to attend them. Do we have the opportunity to do that?
Yes.
At any at all
Yes.
times?
These are open meetings, they're subject to the open meeting law.
Mhm.
And so anyone in the community has a right to attend as an audience member. And you can ask to be put on the agenda if you so choose.
But there's no requirement to have a liaison like
No.
with other, okay.
No.
No, but one of our committee, we could create, we could ask somebody to go and visit each one of the committees as they're putting their plans together to
That's
provide
actually what I did, and we
connectedness.
actually talked about that one year, and I actually went to I visited every school council in 1 year.
That's a great idea.
And then basically they had put me as an agenda item, just asking, to make a little presentation about what's going on with the school committee, and then I just sat and listened to their meeting. That might be something we might consider doing moving forward.
So in this summer, when we have our goal-setting session, and we talk about some of the initiatives that you'd like under these goals, it's a perfect time to
Yeah, I
be
think-
thinking and discussing this in more detail.
I think Karen's right to have that as a goal to improve, to open up, maybe not improve, but open up communications with the school council would be a good goal.
And that falls under family and community relations, which
Right.
is one of your 4 overarching areas for your goals.
I think overall, again, this is a great tool. I think that in most categories we're doing well. I think the one area, and I know Kathy's gonna begin to address that tonight, is getting as much data as we can to assess, success of the district. But overall, I think we're doing a really solid job. Anybody else have any comment?
I just have one question, and a comment actually, but just a report of something I heard. Another school committee member in another community in the South Shore talked to me about their process, because I was curious about you know, whether this tool has been used, because this is actually adapted from a much larger tool that I think we shared with you at the very beginning that
Right.
Cliff put together as a piece of wallpaper.
We didn't
to
have
use.
arms long enough for
Yes.
both.
And I, and, you know,